no.
You know, I never had a chance to go to summer camp as a kid, which was always a downer because summer camp was everywhere in the media I consumed. In books, on TV, in movies, I experienced 1,000 summer camp adventures without ever leaving the house. And summer camps are all over the place in Goosebumps. The Curse of Camp Jellyjam is the second of 4 seemingly unrelated summer camp stories R.L. Stine managed to whip up, which might suggest a lack of creativity, but Welcome to Camp Nightmare was actually one of the best books the series ever had, so maybe it's a big source of inspiration for him. Let's find out. Our book opens with a family taking a long road trip. Mom, Dad, older sister Wendy, and younger brother Eliiot driving through Idaho to some unknown destination, towing a trailer behind them. And right away, we have hateful character interactions that make me cringe. It's usually not a good sign when the characters are being awful to each other right out the gate. "Mom, how do I know if I'm getting carsick or not?" Eliiot asked. Mom turned back to us, frowning. "Eliiot, you never get carsick," she said in a low voice. "Did you forget?" "Oh, right," Eliiot replied. "I just thought it might be something to do." "Eliiot!" Mom screamed. "If you're so bored, take a nap." "That's boring," my brother muttered. I could see Mom's face turning an angry red. In fairness, Mom is the most shitty one here. She keeps pointing out animals as they pass farmland, and then getting irrationally upset when her children aren't as enthralled as she is. Thankfully, Wendy and Eliot's parents are also really stupid, and they let their kids ride in the trailer, separating the crappy adults from the actually not that bad child protagonists. Through a series of arm wrestling contests, we learn that Eliiot is incredibly competitive, while Wendy is fine letting other people win. As they play around, the kids realize the trailer is moving funny. Oh no, it's going backwards. The trailer unhitched itself from the car. They have a bit of a roller coaster ride, the trailer swerving and accelerating, before it comes to a sudden stop at the bottom of the hill. Shaken, but not hurt, Wendy and Eliiot are discovered by a jolly fellow named Buddy, a camp counselor for the nearby King Jellyjam sports camp. They have all sorts of sports: baseball, basketball, swimming, track, ping pong, chess, which is weird. Not that I don't consider chess a sport, but we'll learn this place is 100% about physical fitness. This chess doesn't really fit in with that MO. Also weird is the camp's mascot, the titular King Jellyjam, who looks like a wad of purple bubblegum. Camp slogan: only the best. Buddy brings the kids into camp, separating them into the boys' and girls' cabins. "You two calm your nerves while I try to get a hold of your parents, and hey, feel free to participate in any of our events. Maybe you can even win a king coin. If you win 6 king coins, you get to participate in the winner's walk we hold every night." Seems like a pretty fun place, yes? I brushed back my hair one more time, then followed, but I stopped when I saw a little girl poking her head out from behind a wide tree trunk. She appeared to be about 6 or 7. She had bright red hair and a face full of freckles. She wore a pale blue t-shirt pulled down over black tights. "Hey," she called in a loud whisper. "Hey!" I turned toward her, startled. "Don't come in," she called. "Run away! Don't come in!" The girl vanishes before Wendy can figure what that was all about. Wendy's brought to one of the cabins where she meets her temporary roommates, Ivy, Jan, and Deirdre, who first pretend to be bullies who are going to beat Wendy up, then pass it off as a joke. "Good one, girls. I feel really welcome." There's actually nothing that really distinguishes the 3 girls. They're all very competitive, really living the King Jellyjam lifestyle. There's a swim meet coming up, and Wendy wouldn't mind having a swim, but she soon learns that there's no actual recreation here. Everything is a competition. If you want to get into the pool, you have to join the race. So Wendy borrows a swimsuit and decides to race. And she doesn't do bad. She takes an early lead and would probably win, but she notices that Deirdre is trying really hard, and she's only 1 king coin away from 6, and whatever, Wendy's not here for the contest, so she pulls back a bit and lets the other girl win. Deirdre is excited in her victory, but one of the camp counselors, Holly, pulls Wendy aside. "I know you're new at the camp," Holly said, brushing a fly off my leg. "But you know the camp slogan, right?" "For sure," I replied. "It's everywhere I look. But what does it mean?" "Only the best." "I guess it's kind of a warning," Holly replied thoughtfully. "That's why I decided to talk to you now, Wendy." "A warning?" I cried. I felt more confused than ever. "A warning about what?" Holly didn't reply. She forced a smile to her face and stood up. "Catch you later, okay?" She turned and hurried away. I'm starting to think that things at this camp aren't on the up and up. The counselors act strange, a little overenthusiastic, but unable to answer any real questions. None of the staff seem to be taking any effort to track down Wendy and Eliiot's parents or contact authorities. Oh, also, there are earthquakes. 2 or 3 times a day, a little tremor, just enough to be noticeable. And everyone else is used to it, but it freaks Wendy out. And everyone is obsessed with getting these king coins and... Is this a cult? It's starting to feel a bit like a cult. It must just be my imagination. Let's check out that winner's walk thing. When darkness fell, I saw 2 flickering yellow lights at the far end of the track, moving toward me. As they came near, I could see that they were torches, carried by 2 counselors. A blaring trumpet fanfare made us all grow quiet. We stood in silence as the parade of torches passed by, and then, in the flickering yellow light, I saw faces. The smiling faces of the kids who had won their 6th king coin that day. Okay, yeah, it's a cult. Wendy, Ivy, and Jan want to throw a party in their cabin in celebration of Deirdre getting to do the walk, but Deirdre never shows up. Eventually, the 3 girls wander out of the cabin to see if they can find her, but after a few jump scares, they come across that little redhead girl who tried to warn Wendy earlier that day. Her name is Alicia, and she's panicked and afraid, but can't explain why before running off to avoid capture from camp counselors. When they return to their cabin, the girls discover that all of Deirdre's things have been taken. When Wendy asks Buddy about Deirdre and Alicia the next morning, he simply says they're gone, refusing to elaborate. He's talking weird. He thinks just a bit too long before saying anything. Also, he might be a Terminator. There's nothing Wendy can do but participate in the day's sports activities, so she attends a softball game. But as she's making practice swings, she doesn't see Buddy approach and just smacks him right in the ribs, hard enough to crack some bones. Wendy is mortified, but Buddy acts like nothing happened. He isn't even winded. Wendy meets a few more kids who have just won their 6th king coin, and there's another night of ceremonies, and those kids have also disappeared. And wouldn't you know it, none of the telephones in the camp work. They just play a pre-recorded message about how King Jellyjam wants you to do your best. This is officially bad. Wendy is scared, not just for herself, but because she can't convince Eliiot that anything is wrong. And he's so competitive that he's been quickly collecting his own set of king coins in things like ping pong and basketball, giving the story a ticking clock element. Wendy needs to figure out what's going on here before her brother gets that final coin, or she might lose him forever. Right, it's time to track the counselors after lights out and see what they're up to. She ends up following some counselors to what seems to be some kind of bunker deep in the forest. Sneaking inside, she finds the entire camp staff in a torch-lit room as Buddy performs some sort of ceremony using gold coins to hypnotize everyone, having them clear their minds of conflicting thoughts. Wendy sneezes, and fearing she might be caught, dives into what she thinks is a closet, but is actually a tunnel that leads deep underground, an odd, disgusting stench emanating from the darkness. She follows the tunnel to find a whole bunch of kids, including Deirdre, tending to, well, this. I was staring at King Jellyjam. Not a cute little mascot, but a fat, gross, purple mound of slime, nearly as big as a house, wearing a gold crown, 2 enormous, watery yellow eyes rolled around in his head. He smacked his fat, purple lips and groaned again. Hunks of thick, white goo dripped from his huge, hairy nostrils. The kids, dozens of them, worked frantically. They circled the ugly monster. They hosed him down, scrubbed his body with mops and sponges and brushes. And as they worked, little round objects rained down on them. Click, click, click. The little round things clattered to the floor. Snails! Snails popping out through King Jellyjam's skin. I started to gag when I realized the hideous creature was sweating snails. Whoa, okay, now that is an unsettling monster design, Mr. Stein. Good job. A monster design that is completely spoiled by the reprint cover. The 90s really had a thing for purple slime monsters. King Jellyjam, Ivan Ooze from the Power Rangers movie, Gooey Gus on Ghost Rider. No doubt correlation with the rise of popularity in slime toys, Nickelodeon Gak and the like. But even if it's trendy, King Jellyjam is one of the most unnerving Goosebumps creations I've encountered on this journey so far. It sweats snails. Wendy manages to talk to Deidre without the monster noticing, and learns that it needs people to keep cleaning it, or it would become overwhelmed by its own stench. You need a lot of stamina and strength to do that, so, fit kids. Your chess skills don't really factor into mopping the monster. But King Jellyjam is prideful and full of itself, so it only wants the best of the best as its slaves. So the whole point of the camp and its sports activities is to pick out the strongest, fastest, bestest kids to serve it. And if you don't comply, King Jellyjam will eat you. The reader doesn't ever get to see this, but Deirdre confirms that she's seen Jellyjam eat 3 kids. Usually, if there's a threat of death in a Goosebumps book, it's just kind of vague and implied. No, King Jellyjam is murdering children. If you do not satisfy it, it will kill you, chew you up, digest your flesh, and turn you into shit. And no one you love will ever know what happened to you. Wendy is properly freaked out, so she runs for it and spends the night in the woods. When she returns to the camp the next morning, she finds Eliiot about to win his 6th king coin in a race. She runs out into the track and tackles him. And this is when Eliiot realizes that Wendy's worries are very serious, because Wendy lets people win. If she doesn't let you win, you know it's bad news. Hey, that's like good, consistent characterization. Wendy brings Eliiot to the bunker and shows him King Jellyjam. She's also come up with an idea that might stop it. King Jellyjam's fingers are fat and slippery. If all the kids were to lie down on the ground, it wouldn't be able to get a grip on them. And if the kids aren't cleaning it, the stench will become too strong for it, and King Jellyjam will choke on its own smell. Which is exactly what happens. You watch as this monster basically smells itself to death, a brutal end to a brutal creepazoid. This does 2 things. It starts to break the hypnotic control on Buddy and the other camp counselors, and the smell makes its way to a nearby town, resulting in the police coming to investigate. Wendy and Eliiot get reunited with their parents. It turns out they tried to look for their kids at the camp, but Buddy and the other counselors stopped them. Children are reunited with their parents, well, the alive children, and everyone goes home. We get a short epilogue a few weeks later with a now unhypnotized Buddy showing up to give Eliiot his 6th king coin. I guess the kid earned it, even if it was a token to monster enslavement. I'm sure gold coins printed by a purple slime monster of unknown origins could end up pretty valuable someday. We get a bit of a fake-out ending when Wendy and Eliiot smell something gross, but it turns out it's just Mom in the kitchen boiling up some Brussels sprouts. And that's the horror of Camp Jellyjam. And you know what? It's solid. Maybe not quite as enjoyable as Camp Nightmare, but it's in the win column for sure, making it 2 for 2 for Goosebumps summer camp books. What Camp Jellyjam does well is build a sense of unease. Not horror, not scares, but a growing uncomfortable dread as the behavior of the camp and its staff slowly progress into threatening and unnatural directions. The threat isn't explicitly stated for as long as possible, keeping things simmering. And then, unless you're reading that reprint with a new cover, the reveal as to what's behind all of this is genuinely surprising and effective. This is the nearest R.L. Stine has ever gotten to Lovecraft. An amorphous, incomprehensible monster deep underground, a mind-controlled cult worshipping it, mysterious earthquakes, dark rituals in the middle of the woods by torchlight. I'm almost afraid to ask R.L. Stine the name of his cat. We never find out what King Jellyjam actually is. Is it an alien? A monster from another dimension? Primordial ooze bubbling up after several millennia of festering beneath the Earth's crust? You just don't know. And I think that's a good thing. I think that works for a lot of the same reason Lovecraft's creations work. It's beyond human comprehension. The Haunted School also plays into that threatening unknown. It's a flavor that Stine doesn't use often, but it always seems to work. I suppose when your horror mythology tends to be garbage, using the threat of the unknown can do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. Also, a monster that sweats snails? That is so bizarre that I can't help but love it. Actually, the book's biggest problem is that it doesn't commit to this enough. It's a Goosebumps book. It's supposed to be about scares, not slow, bubbling dread and eldritch monstrosities. So every once in a while, Stine puts in a classic fake-out scare that is so completely unnecessary that you probably didn't even notice that I skipped them in my plot recap. For example, there's a scene when Eliiot plays dead on the floor like he's been attacked by something. It's a trademark Goosebumps scary prank, put in just in case the audience was getting bored, I guess. There's also a scene where a bunch of bats fly by. The bats have nothing to do with King Jellyjam, they're just there to fill in a fake-out scare quota. It portrays a lack of confidence in the material, though if this was Stein's doing or something mandated by Scholastic, I can't say. They're easy scenes to ignore, though. At its core, this is a story of anxiety, of nervousness, and eventually the most serious threat of death the series has ever produced. That makes it unique for Goosebumps, and while it's not the most fun read Goosebumps has produced, it's among the best realized. I give the horror Camp Jellyjam a $2 bill out of 10.